Yeah, so I really curious, how do you foresee this being enforced?
Which part?
From the distribution to the oversight to the tracking privacy laws? Like, I don't see any possibility of any part of the system that's outlined.
Are you saying just essentially that just because the law says something that it won't be followed? Is that where you're?
Well, technically, a law doesn't really do anything unless it's enforced. I mean, we have a bunch of laws on the books that are not enforced. People do them all the time.
Yeah,
So,
no, that's why I'm trying to understand your question.
I mean, they may make a case in court that, hey, this is not even enforceable. So it's like, we have no responsibility.
Well, so I mean, the Treasury can only do what it's authorized to do, right? And so if Congress authorizes and says this is what you shall do, then I guess I don't. What you're suggesting the Treasury will just do something different instead, and that you wouldn't be.
Well,
able
I mean, they could wildly, if it's not if they're not like explicitly stated, they will take a lot of leverage, by interpreting how they enforce these rules. They could be very lenient, or they could be very strict, or they could target certain groups over others.
Well, again, the legislation says you can't withhold it from anybody. It's got a whole longer list of things in there. But yeah, if you want to work on the subcommittee and help tighten up the language, that'd be great. I don't know what yours as far as enforcement mechanisms.
Yeah, I mean, who would even want oversight? Because right now we don't really have oversight for the Federal Reserve. They're pretty much a private entity.
Yeah, except they're still subject to public records laws, so they're not.
Well, yeah, but public record doesn't mean nothing in terms of leverage. Just authority just means like, oh, you have to give over you have to give over your documents.
Well, yeah, they didn't even want to do that. They had to get sued before they were willing to turn over their records.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the only, as far as enforcement, there's the reporting requirement, just that the Treasury, report on how many Treasury dollar bills are in circulation. What else are you thinking? And I'm not 100% sure. I don't know, like a civil rights, this would count as a civil rights violation. That would be triggered by.
I think this would be on the purview and oversight of the Chamber of Commerce, but I don't think that's
the Commerce Department.
Yeah, Commerce Department.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I'll vote for Chamber of Commerce because I think that's a British thing.
Isn't it run by Social Security or something? I don't know.
The Treasury dollar bills in the bank accounts are not. The Social Security is in charge of administering who gets it and how and what the distribution is, the amount, organizing.
Why would you go this route to like Social Security for all? Why would you make a whole new system instead of just expanding on a system we already have? What's your thoughts on that?
I guess why don't you see this as expanding on the system that we already have?
Because you're literally making an entirely different currency.
Yeah,
I'm not seeing the distinction.
Nissan is saying, why not just use Social Security and just lower the age until it covers everything?
Yeah, to zero. Yeah.
Again, I don't understand. Social Security is an insurance program that collects premiums throughout your working career and then pays them back at the end. I'm not understanding what you're suggesting.
So the funding mechanisms would be different. So Treasury dollar bills, directly utilize the unused capacity in the economy. Social Security essentially pairs it with taxes. So I guess you'd have
and it's an insurance program. It's is what
Yeah.
Social Security is.
Yeah, it's basically funded, so you'd have to look at how you would do that, and one thing that you might get is higher payroll taxes, which is, I think that if you want to tax someone, you should tax the wealthy instead, and so it sort of makes more sense to have a program for pushing the money into the economy, and then other programs for bringing money back in. So wealth taxes, also the Federal Reserve could reduce monetary policy and raise interest rates.
Okay.
I think
Yeah,
maybe
I
the other,
guess we have an argument. That's a good argument.
the other part, Nissan, might be just Social Security is sort of being the third rail of politics. And so not touching it and saying, hey, we're going to overhaul Social Security. When, tens of millions of people depend on Social Security, that could be a big red flag for them. So a new program can sidestep that.
Yeah, you could totally get people on the right saying, this is going to bankrupt Social Security and you're going to lose Social Security, and scaring people that, they're going to lose their Social Security instead of getting UBI. I could see that happening.
Yeah. And again, and then so the framing is the American Union Jobs Program to remind Americans of their duties to each other. So it's not money for nothing. It's money to be a good American.
Oh, and also, was this supposed to go on an EBT card, or do you have to get a separate card for this?
You'd have a separate debit card for your digital treasury account. So
These act like digital wallets, or
yes. I guess, well, by digital wallet, I mean, what's any sort
like
of
how a crypto
bank
wallet
account.
works?
I don't know, what's the difference between a crypto wallet and a bank account?
Crypto wallet.
Very big difference. Crypto wallets use a peer-to-peer transaction, first of all, not a centralized audulation system. And second of all, every part of the wallet is encrypted, unlike a bank account. It just uses a routing number and an account number. And also all transactions are immutable, but with bank transaction, you could technically get a refund, although it'd be easier to refund credit than it is to refund a debit though. It's very difficult to do.
Nissan, I'm working on getting a crypto UBI going. So you're,
Yeah, I heard. Yeah, I want to
Yeah,
work with that. I think
you gotta
that's interesting.
get that going. Awesome. Yeah.
So yeah, so the Treasury dollar bills, they're a central bank digital currency. So it's not a cryptocurrency. It's a single.
Yeah, and also, yeah. So again, it's a centralized currency that is controlled by the Federal Reserve. So
No, controlled by the U.S. Treasury, not the Federal Reserve.
oh, I'm sorry, the U.S. Treasury. So aren't you concerned of corruption inside the Treasury that could cause any problems with this?
I mean, yes and no. Everybody's lost faith in the institutions. And so the idea that a cryptocurrency, which is fundamentally based on let's not trust anybody, that is somehow a better basis for society, that it misses the fundamental premise, which is that we're in this together. We've got to be able to trust each other and work together in order for all of us to succeed. And so, yeah, there has to be some trust in government. That's what we're trying to restore by taking back the power ourselves, instead of delegating it to our representatives to write policy for us.
Trust but verify.
And I'd say that it's sort of a system that allows you to build trust in a transparent system, which is decentralized, and which is sort of our traditional centralized governance.
I got 1 more minute left, but did anybody read anything?
Also,
about
is a incentive structure issue.
I didn't follow that.
The way decentralized systems work is because it's incentive-based issue to build trust. Because the more trust you build up, the more you're rewarded, like a proof of stake system. You know, the more you stake, it's like holding things as collateral, you know, and like you're giving up your collateral so you could do these things, and assuming you're working in good faith, and the more you do it, the more you get rewarded for it. I think the problem with our system is there's too many perverse incentive structures that we have, you know, in the system that creates these negative outcomes, because there's a lot of conflicts of interest inside the way our system works. So, I mean, giving more power to U.S. Treasury, I feel would be like, that could be a big trick to misuse, because I mean, there's no real oversight over that on the Treasury.
So what are you making suggestions on how it should be overseen?
Well, you would probably have to build a entire oversight structure, because that doesn't exist right now.
Either do treasury dollar bills. But
No,
yeah,
Treasury dollar bills is just this. It's just the currency that you want to impose on them. I mean, they're free to make currencies, and I'm sure that if you want to do basically doing the same thing similar to China. Okay,
I gotta
I'll
go.
talk to you
I got
more.
another meeting, but
All right.
thanks, Eddie. Thanks, TC.
Hope we can meet
Thanks,
again and
TC.
talk about this. I want to talk more about this.
Sounds good. All right, so we're gonna do this again next week. I know we said it every 2 weeks, but I am terribly bad at calendars apparently, and I schedule it for this week, next week, and then every 2 weeks. So, yeah, hopefully we'll do this next week. Have a good
All
night.
right. Thank you, Brian.
Well, I'm glad we recorded this, because we need these kind of questions, because these are the questions that people want to know. And
But I definitely, I want to talk to you more.
Yeah.
when
Yeah,
Eddie's here,
we gotta
yeah.
find some time. Yeah.
So you want to brief me on what you got for the UBI crypto, because there's actually two cryptos in America right now that's attempting the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I want to get how you do it.
So what I'm doing is basically, you know, trying to build a sustainable and scalable system based on the CCT economics. And the core of it is that, you know, you can have this UBI, you know, based on unutilized capacity, and based on, you know, have it, you know, cause more economic activity. So to get the UBI system to grow, what you've got to do is you've got to build the economy that's attached to it. And so what we're doing is, you know, at a very small scale, like, you know, between the five of us, we've created a ledger, a digital ledger, a spreadsheet, you know, and we've issued a little bit of UBI, and we're trading it between us, for help with anything. So with small numbers, you got to be a little bit creative. So you know, all types of things, like TC and I, you know, help each other on the projects we're working on sometimes, and pay each other Maydow for that. We've got a lady in the group who is really good. You know, she's worked in a kitchen as a sous chef, I think. So she's offering like personalized meal plans. So like if you tell her, like, you know, what you've got in your cupboard, you know, flour, water, you know, salt, or what you've got, then she can come up with like a meal plan and recipes, so that you don't have to like plan, like, oh, you know, tonight I'm gonna eat what, and, you know, what do I need to buy and stuff. Like the planning, she does the planning for you basically, so that when it gets to mealtime, you've got these recipes, you know that you've got the ingredients, and you can just put it together and have a home cooked meal, and maybe, you know, save some money on takeout and stuff like that. Eat better, save money. And
I
she's
like Blue Chew.
Yeah, sort of like that. Yeah, but for the MADAO economy. So, and then you can pay for that in a proportion of MADAO and fiat. So I'm paying her half in MADAO, half in fiat, because she does need sort of outside money for her expenses. So I
But what's like social credit?
oh, sorry, where did you get, what's social credit? It's like it's a cryptocurrency. It's a basic income enabled cryptocurrency. And then I'm also designing, like the whole system of how to make this sustainable. So like based on how much economic activity you have, how much basic income can you issue? So the more economic activity you get, then the more basic income that you can issue. And hopefully that will also drive the economy to
Well,
grow more.
Well, what's your consensus mechanism, first of all?
What is the what?
What is your blockchain's consensus mechanism?
Consensus mechanism? We actually haven't gotten that far. We're building it. We're building it on Cardano right now.
Okay,
Yeah. So we've got a guy working on.
so that's a proof of stake system.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so this currency right now is a token on the Cardano network.
We're working on getting it on the test net. Right now it's on a spreadsheet. It's on a spreadsheet right now.
Okay, so it's not even a token.
Yeah, it's a to be a token. It's not a token yet, but we'll get it.
Okay.
We'll
It's
get
a
it.
way of acknowledging someone
Mhm.
other than just saying, thank you, good job. I mean,
Okay.
I
Yeah,
reward you with something that I have that says
Yeah.
it has value, whether it does or not, but it just tells you that I value you.
yeah.
It's basically IOU.
Yeah, it's basically an IOU. And the thing is that you can actually build an entire economy around the IOUs. People think that you have to have
That's literally what happened with America.
build.
Federal banknote was an IOU essentially,
Yeah,
till they made it actual currency.
yeah, yeah. I mean, you could view it as still being an IOU, of society. But most people don't view it that way. But that's I think that's actually a good way to view it. So it's sort of like me and PC. We could just help each other on different stuff. But when you put it in an economy, then you can actually sort of like multilateralize that relationship. And maybe there's stuff that maybe TC is really good at helping me, but I don't have anything I can really help him with. Well, he can help me. He makes MADAO, but there's some other person who can help him with someone else, and then he can go take his MADAO tokens and spend it with that person to get help. And then maybe that person needs some help with something from me. And so you can just get different people helping each other, and you can get these network effects. Hey, Neo.
Hey Neo, what's up, buddy?
Hey, what's going on?
Oh, yay.
Hey, I took a look at the video you sent me. You sent me the history of Hadouken. Wow. Wow, Bo.
Okay.
Hadouken. So well, you just came into a discussion where Eddie was just discussing his idea for a cryptocurrency based UBI system, which is still in development and
Yeah.
trying to become a token on the Cardano network.
Yeah, we're working on the prototype, and we're building on the prototype. And the main thing is to build the economy. If you can get the economy growing, then it becomes really sustainable. But it's also sort of like network effects in both directions. Like the smaller it is, the harder it is to make it work. But the larger it grows, the more interesting it gets. Because if there's 100
Or are you worried about fees on the network of Cardano?
I didn't.
Are you not worried about the transaction fees on the Cardano network?
I think the Cardano transaction fees are definitely a lot better than the Ethereum ones. Is there other solutions to that are better than Cardano in those terms?
I mean, there's so many right now. There's Solana,
Yeah,
there's what is the other one? Hub or something.
yeah,
It's hard to keep up. There's new ones coming out every day or something. It's hard to keep up.
yeah. I'm definitely open to considering other networks. Yeah,
Oh, you also got the Binance Smart Chain, Binance Network.
yeah. Yes.
Yeah, Binance is not tapped in your country, right?
Yeah, Binance. Well, actually, everything is banned in China.
Oh, right. Damn.
It's banned in China and Binance. I think U.S. citizens cannot use Binance, or maybe they have to like
No.
buy some stuff. Yeah. So, Neo, it's been a while. How's it going, man?
I've been good. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Still, still working on this stuff. Economic theory, democracy.
Where's everyone else?
So Brian, we started at 8, and Brian had another thing at 9:30. So Brian's gone. TC's here still. Yeah, this was our first meeting of American Union Economics. So we're gonna have another one next week at 8, and then every 2 weeks after that.
Eddie did a great presentation, and we got a recording, so I'll be working on that this week.
Yeah, I'm glad you liked it, TC.
Don't forget to send it to me.
Oh, I've been working on this theory for 2 years, and writing it was the easy part. Turns out the hard part is telling anybody else about it. It's just starting.
So what are the proposed tokenomics of this token you're gonna have? Is it gonna be inflationary? Is it gonna be deflationary? It's gonna be static? What are you looking at?
So it's going to be linked to the economy, with the objective being to keep the price of the currency token stable. So for now, we'll probably define stable as like $1 US. But if inflation gets worse for the dollar, eventually we may sort of link it to the CPI or something like that.
Well,
They're in full blast against the. I think the dollar is gonna inflate. I mean, it's
it's already happening.
Yeah,
it's already happening. But what I'm saying is that our foreign policy is actually pushing people to, not when I say people, I meant countries, to get away from the dollar. I think our government is stupid, both of them.
yeah,
Our dollar
I
is
agree.
it's reserve currency status. If that happens, oh my God, we in so trouble.
Enjoy that bowl of food while you could afford it.
I know, right? At least I don't have to go carry a wheelbarrow of money. We have cards now.
Well, Eddie told us how UBI can turn this inflation around without a depression. So,
Oh, I missed that.
oh,
I don't
yeah.
know, how's adding more money into the system gonna stop the inflation?
because the problem is actually not the amount of money in the system. The problem is the distribution of the money. So if the money was distributed correctly and you had enough in the hands of consumer workers, as well as the capitalists, and it was balanced.
I need to step away for a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So if it was balanced, you could like put 3 zeros at the end of the currency, and the only thing would happen is that everybody would just put 3 zeros at the end of all the prices and the wages, and it would be the same thing. The problem is actually the distribution, and the distribution, I would argue, is actually the only problem. And so there are two things that would help inflation right now. One thing is taking money out from the right side or the top side away from the capitalist would help. And another is giving money to the consumer worker actually would also help, because it would bring the system back into balance. It would cause the demand to become more elastic. So the businesses, they would find that it makes more sense to keep the prices low, because if their prices are low and everybody's got UBI, then they'll find that they'll be able to sell a lot more goods, and they'll be able to keep their factories busy, which they would not be able to do if they raise prices. But if they keep the price low, then they'll actually get the factory busy, and they'll make a lot more money that way, because you go from 70%, 75% utilization up to 90% utilization. And that's much better.
Yeah, but yes,
Like the asset bubbles, so that you don't have you don't have the risk of people fleeing from the currency, which right now you've got like a 30-something trillion dollar debt bubble. Some of it is helped by the Federal Reserve, but there's also a lot of countries and private investors in those treasury dollar bills, and those are a source of, if they start worrying about the price of the currency and they all want to get out at the same time and they're moving into other stuff, that's also part of the risk to the dollar, is people fleeing out of treasuries, which there's like trillions and trillions of that, and then moving that to gold, Bitcoin, real estate and commodities. Those are part of it, because valuations are so high. A lot of people are figuring that the best thing invested in is commodities or real estate. And what does that do? That drives up the prices of everything for commodities, and it drives up the prices of real estate and rent. When people are jamming into real estate, it's going up 15% a year.
I mean, the only thing I see that solving is the stagflation problem, not technically the inflation problem, because that's the harsh part that we have in our society. It's just, we don't have just inflation, we have stagflation, because the wages don't weighs up with the natural cost, so it's even harsher.
Yeah.
So giving money back to the people will solve the stagflation problem, but I don't see it solving the inflation problem, because there's no inherent incentive for the producer, for the capitalist and stuff, to continue with production, to keep giving as little as they can for the most amount they can get.
Yeah, the question is what is causing the inflation? Because in order to know what makes the inflation worse and what would fix the inflation, you have to figure out what causes the inflation in the first place. And so for the standard idea about inflation is that it's from an overheated economy. You have too much demand, it overwhelms capacity, and then you get prices going up, right? So that's a good description of sort of what happened in the 1970s. So again, they actually measure capacity utilization. But it's funny because a lot of economists don't talk about it, but they do measure it. So in the 1970s, you have high capacity utilization and you have high inflation. So that explanation works for that era. But right now, the long-term trend line has been down for 50 years. The 70s and the 60s is where we were around the Great Depression, and it's where we're close to today. And it's way lower than than peak. We have lots and lots of unutilized capacity. So that explanation for inflation, the typical one, actually doesn't really work. And so the argument is that what we're seeing is what I call type 2 inflation. It's inflation that occurs when utilization is low. And the reason it occurs is, probably the primary reason is inelastic demand. So only the rich people have money. So businesses find that when they raise prices, it's really profitable because the rich people can still afford it. And everybody else could not afford it, even if you didn't raise prices. So you're more profitable when you raise prices. So you see in the last year, prices are going up and business profitability is actually going up because they're figuring that out. Let me show you some other
So,
data. Yeah.
but what, if more people could afford the product,
Yep.
then wouldn't that just make them more rich? Because more people can afford it?
Wouldn't that make what?
I mean, I don't see. The still preference is there. It's like, what is the capitalist incentive to actually lower the price? I mean, if
Yeah.
more people can afford it, they don't need to lower the price because now more people can afford it. They kept hiding the prices because people could afford it.
Yeah. Well,
And
right.
now you're just adding more people to afford it, so they're just making more money, and they just keep raising the prices. There's no reason for them to lower it.
Well, yeah, there is, because so it's inelastic demand versus elastic demand. So with the inelastic demand, the bottom 80%, they could not afford it regardless. So it doesn't matter what your price is. Doesn't matter if you don't lower prices. If you do lower prices, they're still not going to be able to afford it. Relatively speaking. But if you're now putting money in the hands of everybody, because right now it's all in the hands of the rich. But if now you put money in the hands of everybody, then everybody can potentially afford the product. And so demand becomes more price sensitive. If you lower the price a little bit, then, out of the 100%, the 80% of the people, some of them will be like, okay, if it's a little bit lower, I can actually afford that. I've got some money to do that. And the thing that happens is that, right now you've got this low utilization, but the businesses will find that if you put UBI in the hands of everybody and they keep the prices low or they lower them a little bit, that demand, the quantity demanded, can go way up. People now have access to that capacity. People can actually buy the production, and the businesses will be able to find that they can operate at full capacity. So that brings their revenues way up. So maybe they increase their revenues by 20%. And what happens is their fixed costs don't go up. So if they have a restaurant and it's like half empty, if you fill it up all the way, the revenue goes way up, but the rent doesn't, get any higher. At least in the short term, it doesn't get any higher. There's a lot of fixed costs that don't go up, and so they'll actually find it's much more profitable to keep their capacity full. I mean, which makes sense. I mean, it's more efficient to actually use the factories than you've got than it is to leave the factories running at 70%. And it shows up in profitability too, because the cost of goods sold is usually maybe it's 30%, and then there's 30% fixed costs. So if you raise the revenue by 20%, the whole gross profit, the 70% of that revenue goes straight to the bottom line. It goes straight into profit. And so this is not just theorizing. There's data. So again, the standard idea is that inflation occurs because you've overheated the economy. There's too much demand and capacity cannot keep up. So this is inflation in Argentina. It was relatively low before 2014. For that country, it was 10%. And from 2014, you have it up and up and up. It's now up to 50% per year. It's pretty high. So you can, look at it scientifically. Our hypothesis is, if we say our hypothesis is that what happens is that there's too much demand, and so capacity is completely used. and then you get inflation. So what you would predict is that if you have inflation that looks like this, then you would predict that capacity utilization is maybe like going up to 2014, hits the ceiling, and then it like sort of bumps up around along the ceiling from 2014 to 2022, right? That's what you would expect if the hypothesis is that it is caused by type 1, capacity constrained inflation. If you look at what capacity utilization actually does, it's actually the opposite. So, the year was 2014 is when the curve bent, and you look at what happened in 2014, it's the opposite. It starts going down, capacity utilization, and the more inflation you have, the lower capacity utilization gets. So this does not make any sense with type 1 inflation. That's not what type 1 inflation would predict, but the type 2 inflation hypothesis it predicts that this is exactly what happens is that you have inequality. The businesses are raising their prices and they find that that's profitable, but at the same time they're also cutting off, like, so if they raise the price like 20%, maybe like 2%, they get like a 2% reduction in quantity. So it's profitable, but they're going to be selling less and less goods as they do that. And that's exactly what you see, is you see as inflation goes up, utilization goes down, and the higher it is, the lower utilization is. That's type 2 inflation in the data. Yeah. And if you look at Zimbabwe and the hyperinflation that happened there, it's the same thing. You see very, very low capacity utilization as you get that type of inflation. Weimar Germany, I've always been looking for like capacity utilization figures for it, and I haven't found it. But one of the other corollaries for CCT is that this happens when you have high inequality. And so I have found data that, it turns out that Weimar Germany, again, was like historic high levels of inequality. And Argentina is really interesting because a lot of people, like on the right, they will point to Argentina and they'll say, see, if you do the socialism thing, you'll get inflation. But the thing is that if you look at Argentina and you look at the inequality figures, Argentina and a lot of those South American countries actually have the highest inequality in the entire world. So they may have like some rhetoric in the government, which is socialist rhetoric, but as a country, in terms of the actual measurement of inequality, they're not successfully socialist. They're actually very highly unequal. And again, that also fits with the sort of the type 2 inflation, the CCT, view of how that happens, how that works. It's too much money at the
Yeah, but there's still an assumption that just handing more money to people would automatically reduce the increase the utilization. I mean, that's assuming that the capitalists do decide to have a reduction.
Well, I mean,
especially when they have so much backstock.
Backstop? Have so much what?
Backstock.
Backstock, like inventory.
Yeah, they got warehouses full of stuff, man. Collecting dust.
Yeah, I haven't looked at the data lately. I haven't looked at the data lately for inventory, but in the long run, in the medium run, it's utilization, it's capacity utilization. I mean, they may be stocking up on stuff right now because they're seeing inflation and they're worried about the cost going up, so they're going to stock up lots of inventory. I think that's definitely likely to be.
Well, they mostly stocked up on inventory just because of artificial scarcity.
Right. But their inventory is not going to last forever. If the demand goes up, then their inventory is either going to draw down and eventually they got to ramp up capacity utilization, or they have to ramp it up immediately to prevent the drawdown. And that, why wouldn't they do that? I mean, if they're selling more product, then they're going to manufacture more product. Like if you got the Toyota, just in time, you've got the just in time for some of the car manufacturers, the more they sell, the more they make, and they won't make it if they're not selling it. But as soon as they sell more, then they're going to make more. And it's the point of the business in the first place, is to make products and sell them. and the more products you sell, the more profit you make. And especially again, because of fixed costs, that's actually like leveraged. Like, you know, if your revenues, if your quantity goes up 10%, profits don't go up 10%. Usually they go up, you know, they may go up much more. They may go up like 30 to 50%, because, you know, they may be running on net profit of like 5 or 10%, right? So if you then add 10% in revenues and 7% of those 10 go straight to the bottom line, you've just doubled your profit, based on a 10% increase. Like, it's actually super profitable to increase the quantity that you're selling. But what happens is that, again, in the current economy, they're trying as hard as they can to do that. They're spending lots and lots of money on marketing to do that. And they're just at the limits of it. They can't, because if you look at the surveys, you know, what does it say? Like 70% of Americans cannot afford a $400 emergency. They're not saving any money. So that tells you that their budget is already completely used up. They literally cannot, you know, spend more money on anything. So that is actually the limiting factor in the system right now.
And how would this be different in contrast to like a 4-day work week?
A 4-day work week would be good. I would support that. The 4-day work week would decrease the supply of labor. And when you decrease the supply of labor, you know, that increases the wages. So that would increase labor income. So that would be good for the system if you do a 4-day work week. And the thing is that, you know, that is what we're looking at, is basically labor oversupply. You've got productivity growth, you've got technological advancement and capital investment continually into the economy, which means you can produce more with less labor. And what happens is that if demand does not keep up with that progress, then you get labor oversupply versus labor under demand, and the wages go down. And one of the effects of that is that if wages are super low and the businesses are looking at whether or not they want to automate something, there's always some investment involved with that, and they'll find that it's not profitable if wages are super low. But if you change that system, you ramp up demand so that the labor is all being used, and wages go up, then businesses are going to start finding that, you know, the higher wages are, the more profitable it is, the more it makes sense for them to actually automate that stuff. So what you get is like sort of like more jobs available, including more high quality jobs, and the workers are going to gravitate towards the higher quality jobs. The lower quality jobs that don't pay well, and maybe don't produce as much economic value, they're not going to be able to find workers, and then the businesses are going to have to find ways to automate that so that they can, you know, otherwise, because they're not going to be able to find workers at that price anymore. And that's sort of like, you know, people think that automation causes unemployment, but if you think about it, if the minimum wage is not keeping up, then it's a free market. What happens is that automation doesn't cause unemployment; it causes labor demand to go down. But instead of getting lots of unemployment, what happens is the wages, they're pushed down and they stagnate. And they stagnate until the level where businesses are like, okay, well, like, you know, at $7 an hour, you know, we'll find you something to do. It's not really that valuable of a job. But if you only cost $7 an hour, then we'll hire you at that price. And so instead of unemployment, you get technological wage stagnation, and that's essentially what's been happening from 1980 to the present. So people always think like in some future there's going to be like mass unemployment. That's actually not true. We already have the effect of technological wage stagnation, and we're actually reaching like the bottom, you know, the floor of that era. And the floor of that era is that like we're basically near starvation wages, and people are struggling. And, you know, so, you know, if people can't make enough money, then they become homeless, or they can't afford their medicine, or they're like working 2 or 3 jobs, like all the stuff that Bernie Sanders talks about. You know, they're working 2 or 3 jobs just to keep up. which is not, doesn't really make sense. But that's what happens when you have under demand for labor and oversupply of labor, is that the price goes down, and those people are forced to just work more to survive.
And what would you say to the people that this is not my argument though,
Yeah,
but I'm just gonna bring this argument in. And
Yeah.
just I want to hear your answer.
yeah.
It not fundamentally change the power structure because you're just being given people the UBI means to purchase their power, but the capitalists still have the most influence in the system.
Yeah. Well, so one aspect is like, they're going to have a lot more power in some of the stuff that they really, really care about, which is like the power that they're worried about right now is that they can't make enough money to survive. They're like completely struggling in their lives. So it would help out a lot with that. And then you have like political power structures, and you have like, money in politics, and stuff like that. So directly speaking, it doesn't address that directly, but indirectly, you know what, if everybody has $1,300 a month to survive, and they're trying to organize labor unions, what do you think that's going to do to that? Is it going to be easier to organize against your employer, if you're going to survive regardless of if you're working for them or not? That's going to be much easier to do with UBI. And in terms of getting involved in politics, right now, people who are like struggling to survive, and that takes all their energy, they're not going to have as much space for getting involved in politics. But if they got a little free time, I would suspect that would be indirectly a benefit to getting people involved in politics. Also, it would probably sort of bring a little bit of optimism to the table if you get a UBI through and people are like, hey, wait a second, we can get the system to do something for us. I suspect that would be a good thing for getting people involved in the process.
Wow, that was a fantastic answer. Very well thought on.
Thanks.
Well,
And
that-
I'm gonna have to use that answer now.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I definitely want to rewatch recording to go over this. So, how about you, Neil? Any econ ideas, thoughts?
No, all the arguments I had it last time. I don't see anything different.
I'm processing Noe's last statement that his feelings I think he was unchanged by the presentation. I'm not sure but I'll get it on the recording.
Who was unchanged by the presentation? Who was unchanged by the presentation?
Noe was saying that didn't see anything different, and his feelings were basically the same. I think that's
No, I had some arguments prior. The last conversation we had about this, I've brought up a whole big conversation. It was all long and very I call it very I guess long and redundant. And then I'm just saying that besides that conversation, I don't see nothing new. That's what I meant. Don't read more into it or less into it. Just that those arguments that we had are still the ones that we still had. That's all.
Well, I apologize. I do have a bad habit of making an ass out of you and me, or me and me.
You're muted.
Don't feel that way. Don't feel that way. It was probably my fault because I'm trying to use less words when maybe more words were needed.
Well, I'm clear now, so thank you very much.
Mhm.
And the beat goes on.
Neo, how's New York lately?
It's turning into a police state.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Well, it was already on the boat.
I've seen photos.
So
Yeah.
it's just continuing on track.
Yeah, but I think we're gonna go back to the either the Giuliani or the Bloomberg era again.
Oh God, yeah. I don't look forward
That's
to
what
that.
it's gonna. I mean, this guy is already. You know what's worrying me is that before um before this incident that happened in Brooklyn, are you aware what's happened and what that
The
incident?
subway.
No, not you, Nissan. I know you're not in New York if you don't hear about this by now.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I'm talking to
He's seeing, he says, no, he doesn't know about it.
Oh, you know about it as well?
No, I don't.
All right. Nissan, you want to summarize it real quick?
Basically, it was a domestic terror attack where this guy literally threw smoke bombs and shot out 23 shots, and apparently didn't actually kill nobody, but there was some substantial injuries in a subway car in Brooklyn.
What was that about? What was that guy? Where was he coming from? What was his
It was a mental health issue.
mental health? Yeah.
Yeah. The
You
guy
know,
literally called
if we
himself
stop
into.
recording, I can speculate